Mic check 1, 2. Hey, welcome to the Detroit Metro Plug podcast, where connections matter. I was making sure my microphone was working. So happy Monday to everyone. I'm Charles McKay, aka Charlie the Plug, here with another episode of the Detroit Metro Plug podcast, where connections matter. Every week, we bring you interviews of what we call Detroit difference makers in the area of entrepreneurship and community involvement. Want to give a shout out to everyone. Thank you for joining us live. Thank you for joining us live on our Facebook page at the Detroit Metro Plug Podcast, on our LinkedIn page at the Detroit Metro Plug Podcast, as well as our YouTube channel. And if you find value in what we do each week, bringing you difference makers, people doing great things in the city of Detroit, contributing in a positive way, please share, like, subscribe. This is a great platform where we share positive information, none of that messy stuff. So we have a great topic. I'm excited tonight. I hope everybody's doing well. We are entering the springtime. It's been raining a few days, but they say April showers bring May flowers. So we had some nice weather today and next days to come. So I hope everybody's doing well. All right. So welcome to episode 110. And we have a great guest and a great topic tonight. So we're going to be talking about mental health, critical conversation on mental health and a mental health crisis in the Black community. But before I introduce our guest, I want to share some information about a collaboration I'm doing with a clothing brand called Hood Nerd. And let me share that with you real quick. That's our guest that I'm going to introduce. Okay, so I just want to share a little bit about a collaboration I'm doing with a friend of mine. She has a clothing brand. It's called Hood Nerd, Two Kinds of Smart. So if you want to support our program, our podcast, I encourage you to support this brand. She has t-shirts, different styles and colors. Hood Nerd, Two Kinds of Smart. Got the elements on there. You can shop today. You can go to hoodnerdshop.com, hoodnerdshop.com. T-shirts, hoodies. If you use the promo code DMP10, you get 10% off. There'll be a link in the description on the YouTube replay. You can follow that link. You can go to the website and just type in that code, and you can shop today and get your shirt. Support the podcast. So I appreciate that. All right. Let's see. Here we go. Okay. All right. So let me introduce our guest for this evening. Welcome to episode 110. Critical conversation on the mental health crisis. Our next guest is a native Detroiter. She is a graduate of Wayne State University School of Social Work, MSW. She is a licensed LMSW-C specialization, I believe, in clinical therapy, licensed through the National Association of Social Workers. She is the founder of the Growing Well Clinical Services, LLC, started in 2017, specializes in PTSD, depression, substance abuse, anxiety, spiritual life struggles. Basically, she covers everything. We are excited to have her on our show to talk about what's been going on in our community, how the pandemic has really affected people with anxiety, depression, life struggles. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast. None other than MAQUIRA Oliver.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. I know I did a little introduction. So for our viewers, if you don't mind telling us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, east side, west side. If somebody asked, who is MAQUIRA? How would you describe yourself?
Well, MAQUIRA, I am a person who grew up between Detroit and Inkster, so on the west side, and definitely raised between the both cities with my grandparents and my family who all resided in Detroit. And my parents raised me here in Inkster. However, a lot of my dealings take place in the city now. As an alumni of Wayne State University, received my master's there in social work with a concentration in my clinical studies there. I also concentrated in the macro studies where I was focusing a great deal on learning to develop business and nonprofit from a social work point of view. So a lot of my business now focuses on helping those in the inner city learn how to best deal with their emotional health, where we focus on trauma, we focus on depression, anxiety. I have a lot of both men and women coming in, families who come in to receive services, to be able to work through and process our emotions as a whole, making sure we're living the best lives we possibly can.
All right, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing all that you do and your experience and just the work. We're going to go into detail about the services you provide, but I want to go in our topic, and I want to start off with just sharing this clip I've been showing around on social media, and kind of sort of an introduction of kind of what's been going on in our community. And shout out to Fox 2 Detroit. They had a little story recently, not too long ago, about a lady who's dealing with her son who had a mental health issues, and unfortunately he lost his life. But she was vulnerable and just sharing about her life and her situation with her son, hopefully to get the conversation going in our community to talk about mental health. So I'm going to show that clip, and then we'll be right back.
About 4 years ago, Michael started struggling with his mental health. First depression, then schizophrenia.
I need y'all to know the signs to look for, like the lack of response, the unwillingness to do anything, the having to pull them out of the bed, the lack of not wanting to take medications. Like, I counted meds. Like, I did everything that I could do with my son. Like, I made sure he had therapy. And when that therapist wasn't working, went to the other therapist. There was nothing more that I could have done. I did everything that I could do.
There is a history of mental illness in Capri's family, and she's not afraid to talk about it.
Everything that I've done my entire life was for Michael. And now, since Michael doesn't have a voice, I have to be his voice. My baby didn't die in vain. His life meant something. If it meant that us as a Black community, we start having these conversations, we can't expect anybody else to save us.
A mother who has lost her only child, hoping people will watch this story and learn something.
People are suffering. People are hurting. How do we stop the suffering? How do we stop the hurt? I can't answer that today. But what I can say is we start to heal by having these uncomfortable conversations.
All right, so that was kind of the intro there to our topic. The lady just had a personal experience with her son. And what's your thoughts about that clip? And what is your experience? What are you seeing out here as a clinical therapist?
Initially, when I first saw the clip, I had an opportunity to see that clip some time ago, and I was really proud of that mom for being able to go on TV and to really be vulnerable, because I think vulnerability is a huge struggle in our community already as it is. There's a huge stigma on mental health, and we always hear people saying, well, I don't want to be crazy. I don't want to be labeled as crazy. But for her to go on TV to say, I have a family members who are dealing with mental health, so I know what to expect. I know what to look for. I'm counting his meds. And I think what I'm most proud of with her too is that she stated, if this therapist wasn't working, we went to find another therapist, and she did everything she possibly can to make sure that her son was receiving the help that he needed. So I thought she did a great job in, one, just allowing herself to be vulnerable, and two, to continue to keep trying. In our community, in the Black community specifically, the services seems to be limited because, one, we don't have enough Black and brown people who are providing services in the community. So to be able to have a trusting clinician that you can go to be able to receive services from, one that you trust. Services are divided in a community in different ways. You either have the hospital where you're going to receive services, you have community mental health where you receive services, and then there are going to be private practices. Well, there aren't as many private practices in the community where people are able to go out to reach to someone, to a professional, to receive the care that they need. I think, secondly, we think of mental health when we think about the person who might be sitting on the bench at the bus stop talking to themselves. And mental health is so much more than that. Our mental health, just like we would go in to receive care if we had the flu or a broken arm, there are things and there are symptoms that we need to be aware of that could indicate the need for having professional help. Maybe you're sleeping too much, or sometimes we're eating too much, or we are working to isolate ourselves from people that we love or care about. And those are going to be those red flags or the telltale signs that should encourage you to go out and seek the help. But do we have enough services in between that we're able to reach out to gain that assistance from?
Yes, yes. Wow, man, you said a lot. Wow, to unpack. I was thinking about that whole stigma, particularly in the Black community, about mental health or being labeled so-called crazy. What's your thoughts about how do we overcome that, and where does that come from?
Stigma?
Yeah.
We overcome stigma by just having conversations, getting comfortable with talking about those topics that may be difficult for us. The conversation of just, like she stated in a clip, I have family members who are struggling with mental health. So evidently, if we don't have someone that we can go to that will offer support in just as small as sitting down and having a simple conversation, I'm not feeling good today. I haven't been feeling this way maybe for about a month, and it's starting to concern me.
Right.
Especially with Black men, because Black men already have the pride and the lack of support and the difficulty in being able to discuss their emotions and the things that they're going through internally. So reducing the stigma involves us being able to find those safe spaces to be able to share our thoughts and our feelings and the changes that we're going through.
Do you think we've improved on reducing the stigma? I mean, there's been people coming out, like I think of Charlemagne, the guy from the Breakfast Club, talked about his own life and his mental health challenges and wrote about it in his book. People are opening up. Do you think the stigma is being reduced, or you think it's still kind of a challenge?
I think it's being challenged. I think the stigma is being challenged because we are definitely having more people who look like us who are reaching out. There's Taraji P. Henson, who's talking more about her mental health. You have, like you said, Charlemagne the God and the whole promotion there. You have men and women who share the same characteristics as we do, who are going into communities saying, hey, we need to talk to each other. We need to love on each other more. And we need to promote not just our physical health, but our overall health. And mental health is a part of that. So absolutely, I think we're challenging it. Can we do a better job? We can continue to absolutely do a better job.
Do you think there's a sense there's a crisis? You talked about just having the places to go, whether it's the hospital or private practices in our community. What is the state of having access to mental health services in our community, in your opinion?
Well, I think that's a very good question. My practice is located on a bus line in the city, off the freeway, in a pretty safe environment. We're located in the Henry Ford building off of Outer Drive between 6 and 7 miles. So that's pretty well-known area, correct? So I think just having the ability to reach individuals who can get to their services, either by transportation, may easily access the services is one. Two, can they afford the services? Most people aren't aware that their insurance, whether they're on Medicaid or whether they're on private pay or whether they have private insurance, being able to find a clinician that will work with them in their whatever state that they're in financially to be able to access the services. If they pick up the phone and reach out to someone, then and they're able to get, because I think right now we're in a state where I receive calls on an ongoing basis, whether it's through Psychology Today. People have Googled, I need a Black therapist. And they'll call me and they say, oh my God, you answered the phone. It's right now, I think that there are a shortage of therapists who are able to be accessed and who looks like us in the community, who looks like the community, to where people are feeling comfortable enough to get those services. So again, transportation, knowing that, yes, there are services out there that would accommodate your financial needs. Knowing that just because you might have a problem with your insurance today, but most insurance companies are willing to retro pay back at least anywhere between 30 to 60 days of services. So people aren't aware of that.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yes, people aren't aware of that. They will retro pay. They will ask, especially with Medicaid, if Medicaid has an HMO attached to it, they will ask, have you received services within the last 30 days that have not been covered? And that's just a key question to the provider, that services may need to be paid for that have not been paid for yet for the individual. So one, having transportation, having a financial needs, being able to know how to access the services. So there's Psychology Today, who's online. Google, if you type in keywords, therapists in area, whether it be your zip code. So making sure you Google those keywords. There's Black therapist sites who are focusing on female Black clinicians or male Black clinicians. So being able to Google with keywords to be able to access those links. Also, if you contact crisis lines, those crisis lines will also assist in helping an individual locate services. Also, Detroit has recently opened, or is in the process of opening, our first 24-hour crisis center that is separate of hospitals. So there's a crisis unit that will be in Detroit that will be servicing individuals. It is operated through DWIN, and they will be servicing people on a crisis need basis. And they will also assist with accessing resources in the community from the South.
Wow, that's awesome. That deserves some air horns. I like what you said. You just kind of unpack your statement there. I like the fact that your practice is right on the bus line, right there in Southfield, and on the drive in the hospital right there, so people can access it through the bus, driving. It's right in the neighborhood, and you share that in most people have like insurances, like people based on their income, they may qualify for Medicaid, and Medicaid does pay for services. Now, are you able, in particular for your service that you provide in therapy, are you able to be on Medicaid for those who may have that kind of insurance?
For my services, I accept private pay. I accept people on a sliding fee scale. I accept Medicaid recipients who may have an HMO associated with that.
Right,
I also accept private insurance as well. So the service between myself, I have another clinician in the office as well, and she has her separate practice where she is also able to accept insurance, some Medicaid, HMOs as well, and private pay. So we work together to make sure that we're able to accommodate as many people as we possibly can with the two of us. In the fall, we are bringing on additional clinicians who, because we are a teaching practice, and by teaching practice, I mean we do work with interns, but that is the choice of the individual who's coming in. We just want to make sure that they are aware that we are doing everything we possibly can to mentor and educate other clinicians who want to also service others in the community, and especially in the inner city. So
great.
We're working to expand this as much as possible.
Yes, that's awesome. You said something also, just kind of explaining what's going on currently, and you said there's people within our community are looking for therapists who look like them. There's a part of the community. So are you indicating that as far as Black clinicians, there's a shortage, or what's your thoughts on that? What's going on with that?
There are Black clinicians in the area, but specifically in Detroit, who are available to service people who may be dealing with anxiety or depression or trauma. When I'm receiving calls, I'm hearing this has been consistent that, oh my goodness, you're the first person who's answered the phone in 2 weeks, or no one has returned my call. So that to me tells me that as clinicians, there aren't enough of us who are able to provide the services, or they're the ones who are providing services. Our caseloads are so full that there isn't enough to spread around. So, and then also, are they located in the city? Are there enough who are in the city versus who may be in Farmington, or who may be in Canton, or who may be in Royal Oak? But are there enough practices in the city? And I say that only because there's a difference between community mental health and private practice. Community mental health deals with more of the severe mentally impaired.
Right.
So we have more of the people who are dealing with schizophrenia and the higher level of bipolar. So those are individuals who have a lower level of functioning. Whereas in private practice, we're dealing with people who may be going to work every day, but they're still struggling with their own level of depression or anxiety.
Right.
And those are people also who are like, hey, can you fill out my FMLA papers? Because I need the extra time to be able to attend to the
Yeah.
So just to give people an example of what it can look like. Yeah.
Well,
So
now, how does like technology play? I know like platforms, I don't know if it's a platforms, but like Better Health, where they do it telehealth, or they do it virtually. Is that a way to kind of service more people? Because if they can't get to you, I know you're strategically on a bus line right in the community on the west side.
yes.
But what about someone? How does that play in terms of, I don't know, doing it virtually?
Well, most of us, and I'm not going to say all of us, most of us offer what we call hybrid services, where we give people the option to be able to come into the office or work virtually. Thanks to COVID, that has definitely opened up the platform of being able to receive services.
Right.
So, how anyone who may be going or considering mental health care, how would that differ than Better Help services? Better Help services aren't able to, well, in my opinion, they aren't able to make that level of connection with an individual as if you're able to actually physically have the option to go in and sit in the chair or sit on the couch, as many would say, and have that conversation. In Better Health, what's different with the virtual sessions, and that's in any platform, but what's different is if you would actually go in and sit with a clinician, we're able to assess so much more. There's so much more than what's happening from here on up. There's so much more taking place in the body that tells us a story for the individual. We don't know if that person is playing with their fingers in their lap, or are they touching things, and those are all indications of increased anxiety. We can't see the breathing that takes place with the individual when we're working on a hybrid platform. So when, as clinicians, and we say, hey, can you come in? Because there's so much more. We look at how a person walks. We look at how the person takes care of themselves. And all of that goes into an assessment for a person. And assessments are ongoing as well. So it's not just that one time for an hour that we sit with a person and we're like, oh yeah, that's what's going on with you. No, every time we meet with you, there's an assessment taking place that we need to have. And so to have that in-person experience is so much greater than, and of course we are very much so appreciative of being able to have the telehealth or the hybrid service, but there's so much more that goes into the service. when we're able to actually physically meet with that person one on
Yeah,
one.
yeah. Like I didn't think about it. You made a very excellent point because
Mhm.
there's things you can't see virtually on if you just on the camera, like how we're doing virtually right now.
Right.
You can't see those little things, how they're moving, how they're breathing, how they're playing with their hands, how they're walking. So I can see the impact of being in person in terms of how to better assess their health status and be able to see things you can't see on camera. So that makes a lot of
Absolutely.
sense. I didn't think about that. And so it sounds like, as far as those who have maybe get what we call critical mental health challenges, whether it's schizophrenia or something like that, there's
Yes.
services in place. As far as like someone like me that may be overwhelmed in my job, dealing with some anxiety, maybe I lost a loved one, maybe even financial stress that's causing me to have anxiety or depression. Um, there's not enough
Correct.
clinicians that possibly help me, or there's a shortage. You're discovering.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now,
Something else, and this is just very near and dear to my heart. Sorry to cut you off, Charlie,
oh
but
no, you good.
when I look at us as a community, and this is just something that I'm passionate about in my practice, is working with families and individuals who aren't able to understand how the everyday movement causes, or some of the everyday movement that causes trauma, and how that trauma builds upon each other and can create our lack of understanding with what's going on within us. And so we don't recognize when we're having challenges. Sometimes we sit with friends and or family and they say something's off with you. You've been acting different lately, and we begin to take that personal. But with everyday life, dealing with our children, dealing with our families or loved ones, or I had someone come to me the other day, Miss Mo, I was driving down the street and the challenges I was having with the person who was driving next to me because they were having road rage. And did you hear about the person that got shot the other day? That was a relative or a close friend of mine. So the everyday trauma that we don't recognize because we think is normal. And those are good reasons as well to seek professional help. And we don't do it. We tend to just go through everyday life living that way. And that burden and that heaviness tends to
Yeah.
weigh on us on a long-term basis when we can have relief from it.
Yes. Wow, man.
Mhm.
Wow. So a couple of things I want to go into because we're going to go specifically what you do with your company,
Okay.
Growing Well Clinical Services. Um, what would be some of the signs that people are having a mental health challenge that you encourage?
As I said earlier, you may be dealing with difficulty sleeping, or you might find yourself isolating yourself from others, especially your family. Increased agitation and irritability is definitely a telltale sign. And then on a flip note, on the flip side of that, some of us don't recognize how we may begin to have excess spending, or
Mhm.
we're drinking a little bit more. Nothing's wrong with having a drink here and there. We all grown, right? The majority of us. So maybe we're drinking every
Self-medicate.
month now or self-medicating, exactly. So maybe you are becoming more impulsive in your behavior where you're spending more money, you're spending
Yeah.
excess money. Sometimes we become more hypersexual and may not recognize that we're hypersexual, but a
Mhm.
friend may say, why are you doing that? Why are you behaving that way? So whenever a loved one or someone that we trust come to you and say something's off with you or what's going on with you, that may be a sign to say maybe I should just talk with a professional.
Okay, like somebody, I mean, not to be funny, somebody said, "Hey, man, you wilding out here, wilding."
You real
Like,
wild,
you say, yo, I gotta check myself. Okay,
right? And it's different than going to a party and enjoying yourself and having fun,
that's
right?
different. That's different. That's
That's
different.
different. We're not talking about that. We're talking
Yeah,
about, man, you've
yeah,
been on this, you've been on this craze for the last couple of weeks. What's going
right.
on? What's
Going
happening
on.
with you? I have never seen you spend X, Y, and Z the way that you have been. So something's
right.
off. Something's going on. What's wrong?
Yes. Oh, okay, that's good. So we talked about the signs. We talked about just the need to make it accessible, and it's great that you're in the community. And I think you kind of are doing some things to help get more clinicians licensed and trained. I do know people. I went to my undergrad in social work. Went to Wayne State University, so shout out to Wayne State.
Warriors, go Warriors.
Go Warriors. What I do find is that those at the master level have challenges in getting licensed, getting the experience. You might share with our audience, what do you? I think you do some things to help train people so that there are more clinicians available to serve our community.
Yes, definitely. I was one of those people who, after graduating, had difficult times with passing the test. And that's one of the major complaints when it comes to social workers who are recent graduates and they're working to pass the test. So I will mentor clinicians who are limited license in helping them with studying and passing the test. I had a few clinicians come to me who were successful in being able to pass that test. Excuse me. And I also work and collaborate with Wayne State, Eastern Michigan University, and U of M in mentoring and hosting interns who are looking for placement for private practice, who want to learn more of the trade and the skill. I also work in the community, in the HIV community, and I provide different workshops on trauma and mental health so that those who I mentor are able to go out in the community with me and they are participating in those trainings with me. So if a person comes to me and they say, hey, I want to open up my own practice, I am going every step of the way to assist them in making sure that they successfully are able to open a practice. And a lot of that experience comes from just my own experience that I'm currently still going through to make sure that my practice stays viable and successful. And I just want to make sure that other people who are going into the profession are able to miss many of those hurdles that I didn't have someone who was able to mentor me to do that. So I just want to be as much as an agent in the community as I can.
Yes, I just want to commend you for making yourself available by sharing your success and failures to help other people to overcome hurdles so that they can have a successful practice.
Thank you.
And so that kind of transition to because people are watching this, they're hearing your story, they're hearing the need, they're hearing the crisis, they're hearing the signs of mental health and how we're working to reduce the stigma. And they're going to probably want to know how can they work with you. And so whether it's mentoring or maybe someone's watching and they themselves or may know someone who is having a mental health crisis. So I want to share some slides so people can know more about what you're doing.
Okay.
Okay, so here's your website. So how do people get in touch with you and get involved with the services that you're doing?
So my website is Growing Well Clinical, and that is .com. And you're able to go straight to the website. The website would allow you to directly connect with me. It sends me an email or a contact information. I'm also on Psychology Today, and you can search me under my name, MAQUIRA Oliver. We're in the 48235 zip code. My email address is growingwellclinical@gmail.com. Again, that's growingwellclinical@gmail.com. You can reach me also by phone, 734-846-5723. That is my direct line. And my phone is on 24/7. So there's no reason why a person can't reach me. If you Google Black Therapist in Detroit, I'll pop up. I've done it myself just to see who pops up. So I am very accessible through the internet. So that's Psychology Today. There's my website, Growing Well Clinical. And there is growingwellclinical@gmail.com. And then my number again is 734-846-5723.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now I have this slide up because I want to want to make sure people are self-aware. Now I brought this up and probably like, what does J. Cole got to do with mental health? Well, I'm glad you asked. I only brought this up because it's a relevant topic of, in hip hop, there's this kind of back and forth so-called beef. And J. Cole's in the midst of, he created a song with Drake, first person shooter, and then it was sort of like a slight jab at Kendrick Lamar. He fired back, and then J. Cole got into the mix. But then he said, you know what? The way he moved felt spiritually bad for him. And the reason why I bring that up is that I think it's important for people to be self-aware, to know where they're at, to find their own peace. And I wanted to ask you, just in your opinion, how important it is to kind of be self-aware of yourself and know how do you get on that path of peace, just like J. Cole. He realized, he's like, man, I don't want to get in all of this. I'm functioning at a different frequency. And he was getting involved with, he said, that's disturbing his peace. How do we get to that place and seek out help for like people like yourself?
That's a good question. I think the way that we begin to do that is it's going to be different for everyone. I don't think that is necessarily a cookie cutter answer that I can give.
Right.
You got to know where your challenges are and be willing to work and process through them. Mm-hmm. I also believe that sometimes we have to be willing to make that commitment to ourselves to help ourselves reach whatever that level of peace is for you. In doing so, you got to be willing to be vulnerable, and you have to be willing to have some time to be able to take to yourself. I think if you can't be willing to find peace within yourself if you aren't willing to be within yourself. Right. In order to find that level of peace. So honesty, vulnerability, time, commitment, I think will definitely help any person who is wanting to move in that direction. But without all of them, or even some of them, those aspects, it's going to be difficult to reach that. And again, you got to be willing to have that. You got to know what it is that you're looking for and searching for within yourself. And if you don't know just yet, be willing to say, I'm not sure what that looks like for me, but I'm willing to go through the process so that I can find it.
Wow, that's good. What are some specific services that you provide through your Growing Well Clinical Services? I have a slide up here of something. Anything you want to highlight that you specialize in?
Something that's not there is that I do offer small level or fraction of case management services. I do have people who come to me who are in need of disability, or they're looking for community resources to help them with navigating some of those needs that they have. And then I also partner with other entities in the community in a medical field to assist individuals with those medical needs. So I partner with nurse practitioners as well as some doctors who are able to help with the additional psychiatric needs that are needed. I also focus a great deal on the whole total person. So not only are we looking at your depression or your anxiety or trauma or grief, but I'm also looking at what are you eating? What are you putting into your body that may be influencing those emotions that you have? And we also get hands-on with individuals. I have some people who come to me. I have a great deal of young adults who come to me and they're like, I need to go back to school. I want to go back to school. So assisting them with filling out applications to get them back in school, reaching out to the schools, going to the schools with them, and assisting them with getting back in school, or even pairing them with someone who can assist them with doing so. So we get very hands-on. I get very hands-on with my clients, and that's very important to me, to know that they don't have to do it and go through every process alone, with helping them with rebuilding their lives.
Yes, and we got right up there on the slide your email, phone number up there, so people can contact you. I want to go into you got an upcoming event and share a little bit about this whole thing you're doing with No Laughing Matter.
Awesome. So that's my partner. Her name is Rebecca. Shout out to Rebecca. And Rebecca and I have May next month is Mental Health Month, and it's also our birthday month. And we wanted to host an event which is called No Laughing Matter, where we're bringing in local comedians from the Detroit area and wanting to just have a good time with the community, some great folks, and help to also raise money to further fund our endeavors. And so that's going to be taking place May 31st. It's a Friday evening. It's going to be at the Chance Place located on Schoolcraft. We're asking for $50 donations. Our Cash App and Zelle is located there. And we just want to be able to invite as many people out, have a good time, laugh a little with us, break a little bread with us, and just have a great time in celebration of Mental Health Month and our birthday.
Your birthday and Mental Health Month. All right, shout out. I don't know if you can see the flyer. Hopefully you can see the details. So they can RSVP, get tickets through, is it Zelle and Cash App, or what is the two ways they can donate?
Zelle and Cash App. If they have any questions or concerns, my number is located there at the bottom of the flyer. They can reach out to me at 734-846-5723.
Is there a deadline for them to register? Can they show up at the door with $50? Or
we prefer that they reach out to us and let us know so that we can have a good count of individuals who are coming in, because the space will only hold or accommodate so many people.
Okay.
So I prefer that they reach out to us.
Okay. What are you guys hoping to achieve with this event?
Well, we're hoping to be able to raise funds so that we can continue to help individuals who can't afford mental health services. One. To be able to put more funding into our mentorship programs for clinicians. She's a licensed professional counselor. She's also a PhD level clinician. So we want to be able to bring in more resources so that we can continue to educate other clinicians who want to provide services.
All right. So folks, mark your calendars, May 31st, a Friday. No Laughing Matter, Mental Health Month in May. Support this event on May 31st, Friday. $50 donations. Check out the flyer. Make sure you let MAQUIRA and what's the other person that's on there?
Rebecca.
Make sure you let them know you're coming. Zelle, Cash App. I don't know if they take cash in person, but let them know you're coming. Support for a good cause. Mentoring program, helping train clinicians to provide needed services in our community, because the statistics are showing that there's a mental health challenges people are facing coming back from COVID, financial challenges, dealing with depression, overeating, things that you may not see. When we think of mental health, we think of somebody walking around at the bus stop talking to themselves. That's a version of it, but there's also people quietly suffering that need to talk to people. And this event will help to raise money to maybe provide services for people who may not have the proper insurance or may need some help. So we want to encourage everybody to do that, to support that. I appreciate you and your time and sharing about the services that you have and what you're doing in the community. This platform is about giving people their flowers while they're here, just acknowledging what you're doing. You're doing great work, and I appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity, Charlie.
Yeah. So is there anything I'm missing? Anything, closing remarks, or anything that we didn't cover that you think is important to let people know with regard to mental health and the challenges that people are facing?
I believe we covered everything on a large scale. So, yeah.
All right.
Thank you. You're an awesome host. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for your time. I'll make sure we'll have information in the description how people can get in touch with you for the replay on YouTube. Our description below,
Okay.
your contact number, email. So if you're out there, you may be dealing with a mental health crisis. Maybe you're stressed out at work. Maybe need to take some time off. Maybe you know someone. Make sure you reach out to Growing Well Clinical Services. I definitely want to encourage everybody to support this event on May the 31st. All right.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, MAQUIRA Oliver.
Thank
Growing
you.
Well Clinical Services. Thank you for being on episode 110.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that wraps up our podcast for this evening. Thank you for those who are watching live and watch the replay. Please like and share. Subscribe if you find value in what we're doing. And this was an important topic. Share this with someone who may need help and encouragement. And I'll see you next week with, I'm going to do a recap presentation on my experience at Black Tech Friday. So see you next Monday.